You say when you start, you say you know they go party, you know they womanize, you know they sleep for hotel, you know they put your money for bank. Why you take these decisions?
You know, if I dey put money for bank now, I fit go bank now, make the camera carry me or make I make as different people dey come bank.
He didn't wake up wanting to kill. He woke up wanting to survive. But when the world shows you no mercy, mercy begins to die inside you. For years, he walked the line between victim and villain until the line vanished. His name would soon echo through police radios, across bullet-riddled bank walls, through the whispers of fear in every motor park. But behind the gunfire, behind the blood and the legend, was a man broken by a system that never gave him a chance to heal. This is the true story of Godogodo, the man who fought back against injustice and became the very thing he hated. Abiodun grew up in the bustling streets of Ibadan, Oyo State. Like many young men of the 1980s Nigeria, his dreams were modest: survival, success, and a chance to rise above the noise. He moved to Lagos, the city that promised gold and fame to anyone willing to sweat for it. There, he found himself at Ladipo market, selling vehicle spare parts, chasing customers beneath the sunburned taps of Mushin. He wasn't rich, but he was content. Friends called him quiet, even reserved. Nobody could have predicted that this calm, soft-spoken trader would become Nigeria's most feared criminal. Then came the turning point: a false accusation, a routine police raid gone wrong. Abiodun was arrested for a crime he never committed, a petty theft case that spiraled into weeks behind bars. He tasted the bitterness of Nigerian prison life, the corruption, the brutality, the humiliation. Inside those walls, something inside him broke, and something darker was born. They say prison reforms men, but for Abiodun, prison reshaped his soul. He watched policemen beat inmates for bribes. He saw innocent men rot behind iron doors. He learned that in a system built on injustice, mercy is a weakness. When he was finally released, he walked out of the prison gates with a scarred heart and a vow never to be a victim again. The streets had taught him a language of survival, and survival in Lagos could mean only one thing: power. At first, he stayed quiet. He went back to Ladipo market, tried to rebuild, but the ghost of injustice haunted him. The police that wronged him still ruled the streets, extorting traders, humiliating citizens. So, Abiodun began to mix with new company: men who lived by the gun, hustlers who solved problems with violence. And soon, a small act of rebellion became a life of organized crime. In the shadows of Oshodi and Mushin, he learned how to handle a weapon. He studied police patrol routes. He watched the city's heartbeat, its traffic, its chaos, its greed. While others robbed for quick cash, Abiodun studied how to build a system. He was patient, calculating. He knew fear was more powerful than bullets. They started small: car snatching, store break-ins, local bank assaults. Each hit was faster, cleaner, bolder. The gang moved like ghosts, in and out before police even reacted. When bullets met badges, it was clear this was no ordinary criminal. Abiodun Egunjobi had transformed into Godogodo, the one-eyed lord of Lagos underworld. The nickname came after a violent encounter. During a gunfight with rival robbers, a bullet grazed his face and shattered his left eye. He survived, but the wound became his signature. From then on, people whispered of the one-eyed man who feared no death. He didn't hide his scar. He wore it like a crown. And soon, his name began echoing from Lagos to Ibadan, from Ogun to Ondo, Godogodo, the man even the police feared to face at night. His operations were meticulously planned. He didn't just rob banks. He studied them. He waited weeks, sometimes months, before striking. When he attacked, it was surgical, brutal but precise. He would often strike multiple targets in one day, leaving confusion in his wake. Bank guards were outmatched. police response was too late, and each successful hit strengthened his myth. What made Godogodo stand out wasn't his violence, it was his mind. He stayed invisible. He never showed up at scenes. He built a network of loyal gunmen and paid informants in the police and transport unions. While his men did the dirty work, he stayed back in Ibadan, coordinating from a distance like a general commanding his army. The city bled, but nobody could catch him. As money flowed, so did blood. Every heist left a trail of. During interrogation, he didn't fight. He spoke softly, sometimes with a broken voice. He confessed to everything: the robberies, the police killings, the bank attacks. But between those confessions lay something unexpected: regret. He said, "I didn't start this life because I wanted to kill. I started because I was hurt." He talked about the police officer who first framed him, how that moment in prison planted a seed of hatred he could never uproot. He admitted that vengeance had turned him into the very thing he once despised. It wasn't pride speaking that day, it was exhaustion. A man finally seeing what his rage had cost him. The police called it the end of an era. Citizens cheered. But in a quiet corner of the cell, Abiodun sat alone, half his face scarred, one eye staring into nothing. He whispered that he wished he could start again, that if the system had treated him differently, maybe none of this would have happened. He never lived to see freedom again, but his story lived, not in glory, but in warning. To every young man who thinks revenge is power, to every heart that turns pain into violence, Godogodo's life stands as proof. You can win every war on the street and still lose the battle inside your soul. In the end, the story of Godogodo isn't just about bullets or banks. It's about a nation that failed one man, and a man who failed himself. From trader to terror to tragedy. This was Godogodo, the one-eyed king of Lagos crime. And his fall reminds us that justice may sleep, but it never dies. His arsenal grew: AK-47 rifles, GPMGs, dynamite sticks. He sourced weapons through corrupt soldiers and smugglers across the borders. Every bullet carried the echo of his vengeance. He believed he was fighting back against the same system that once caged him. To him, every police casualty was justice. To the nation, it was madness. By the early 2000s, the Godogodo gang was untouchable. They raided banks in broad daylight. They ambushed bullion vans on expressways. They stormed police stations just to seize weapons. Lagos trembled. The government tightened security, but Godogodo always stayed one step ahead. Behind the monster, though, was still a man. Those close to him said he had moments of silence. Times he'd sit alone, staring at his reflection in the mirror, his one eye gleaming in the dark. He had money, power and fear, yet peace never came. The ghosts of his past never stopped whispering. Friends from his early life couldn't recognize him anymore. The gentle trader from Ladipo had become a warlord, and though he lived like a king, he trusted no one. He knew betrayal was the language of the streets, and sooner or later, even kings fall. By 2012, the name Godogodo had become legend, half man, half meat. But legends, no matter how dark, always meet their reckoning. In the next chapter, the hunter becomes the hunted, and the man who defied the police for over a decade finally faces justice. By 2010, Lagos was no longer a city that slept. Behind every car horn and midnight shout was an echo of fear, a fear that wore one name: Godogodo. He wasn't just another robber. He had become a legend, the one-eyed phantom who appeared, struck, and vanished like smoke. For years, police stations had fallen to his men. Banks had emptied their vaults before he even arrived. And still, nobody had seen his face clearly. His gang operated like a militia. 30 men, hand-picked, heavily armed, loyal to no one but their leader. They traveled in convoys, dressed like soldiers, with walkie-talkies and bulletproof vests. Each job was rehearsed, each escape route memorized. Godogodo didn't believe in luck. He believed in calculation. He was never present at the scene. He controlled from a distance, directing his men through coded calls. And when the loot came in, he shared it like a warlord rewarding his soldiers. In return, they worshipped him. To them, he wasn't just a boss. He was the man who defied the police and lived to tell the tale. They said when Godogodo's men struck, even police officers dropped their uniforms and ran. They came like a storm, masked, ruthless, fearless. Whole banks would shut down for weeks afterward. And as his legend grew, so did his enemies. Within the police ranks, one name began to rise. A man equally relentless, equally obsessed, Abba Kyari, the commander of the Lagos SARS. He wasn't chasing fame. He wanted the ghost that had humiliated the force for over a decade. And for him, the hunt for Godogodo became personal. Operation Catch. Godogodo began quietly. Weeks turned into months of surveillance. Every informant, every arrest, every whispered rumor led to another dead end. He was always one step ahead, watching, listening, waiting. He changed houses often. He hid in plain sight, among the poor, among the traders, among the noise. He never used flashy cars. He walked like a man invisible. But arrogance is the weakness of every legend. And slowly, cracks began to show. One by one, his trusted men fell, killed or captured. Police began tracing phone signals, tracking weapon shipments, mapping every bank hit with uncanny precision. Still, Godogodo didn't stop. He believed he was untouchable. When the police raided one of his hideouts in Ogun State, they found cash, rifles, and a picture of him holding an AK-47 like a trophy. It was proof the myth was real, and now he was cornered. It was a hot, quiet night in Ibadan. Police intelligence had pinpointed a small bungalow, an unassuming house on the city's edge. Inside, Abiodun Egunjobi, Godogodo himself, was asleep. For the first time in 12 years, the hunter had a clear shot at the hunted. At 2:35 a.m., the strike team surrounded the house. No lights, no sirens, just the silence before history. The knock was swift. The door burst open. A flash of torchlight, a scream, a struggle, and then gunshots. Within minutes, the man who had terrified an entire city was dragged out in handcuffs. The one-eyed king had fallen. In the police headquarters, Lagos SARS officers gathered to witness the impossible. There he was, calm, wounded, staring at the floor. The man who once ruled the underworld sat like a tired farmer at the end of a long harvest. Reporters couldn't believe it. Abiodun Egunjobi looked nothing like the monster they'd imagined. No tattoos, no gold chains, just a simple man worn by years of running.